welcome to this special here on CNBC TV 18 and Network 18. I'm Shereen Bhan. It's been an important year for us as a country. We've marked a very significant milestone, 75 years of our independence. But part of that is another very important milestone that we've marked. It's 25 years of the Quality Council of India. Joining me now to discuss India's quality movement is the chairman of QCI and the Secretary General, Dr. Ravi P. Singh and Adil Zainulbhai. Many thanks for joining us here on this special. And let me get started with exactly that. Several milestones been marked, dramatic shifts as far as the Indian economy is concerned. Today, the fifth largest economy globally, with the aspiration of entering the top three. Adil Zainulbhai, I want to understand from you, as you look back and you've watched the many twists and turns and the dramatic developments as far as India's economic awakening is concerned, what would you say have been the shifts that have really helped us get to where we are today?
I think these things are a long trend over time, and I think over that much time, many big changes have occurred, which if you take a 10-year view or a 15-year view, you can see a huge change. And let me point that out, not so much in terms of the global economy, which is of course very interesting, but in terms of what has happened to the Indian citizen. So if you look at 15 or 20 years ago, and you take a person living in a rural area, because the majority of Indians were rural, and try to think about what was her life like, right? And you look at that today, and you look at what it would be 2047, which would be our, the 100th year of our independence. You will see a massively dramatic shift in what happens. And many of those are things that we as Quality Council of India have tried to measure and have tried to show the improvement in the quality of life. So I'm focusing not so much on India's role in the world, but how it has improved the lives of our citizens. So let me take you through just that journey, which I think will highlight. So 15, 20 years ago, if you talk to Srimati Devi in a village in UP or Bihar, there would be a dirt road leading to the village. Village did not have electricity, did not have running water. There was no TV connection there. So Shereen, they couldn't see you there at that time, and they couldn't follow your wonderful program. They did not have a bank account, and they did not have toilets, and they didn't have a house made out of bricks. You go today, 15 years later, and a very large proportion of Srimati Devi's, take her daughter now, right? Because 20 years ago, her daughter lives in a village that has a concrete road through the village, and through the road construction program, rural road construction program, a road connecting them to all the market centers there. So they can travel 100 kilometers to sell their produce before they travel 10 kilometers in a bullock cart. Second, her kids go to school, which is less than 15 minutes away. They have electricity in the house. They can watch free satellite TV and can watch Shereen Bhan and CNN 18 and various other channels. But although they mostly watch, Colors and various other entertainment channels, they have a bank account into which they get a direct deposit because they are farmers. So they get the farmer loans there, and a scholarship for her daughter comes through that. And their house is made out of bricks, which came through PM Awaaz Yojana, and they have a toilet in there. So the difference in their lifestyle is phenomenal. The average longevity has gone up dramatically.
You brought up schemes of the government like the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, the Vidyutikaran Yojana, Swachh Bharat, etc. How closely have you aligned what QCI is trying to do with some of these marquee projects and schemes that the government is running?
So, one of the things that we believe in quality, fundamental phase of quality is if you can measure it, you can measure the quality. If you can't measure it, how do you know it's great quality? Right? So one of the things that has happened in these marquee programs is that QCI has been quite involved in helping measure the impact. So for example, when the Swachh movement started, and Param Iyer was the secretary of Swachh Gramin, and he was building 100 million toilets. There was a lot of discussion about whether the toilets were being built, they were built correctly, and they were being used. If you remember this,
I remember.
Shereen, there's a lot of hullabaloo. Lots of NGOs are saying it's not being built, it's all a lie. And so what we did at that time is QCI went and did a 770 district survey to see how many toilets were actually being built and how many were being used. And once you had that data, it was better, then you could decide whether the scheme was working or not and what needed to be done. And of course, you know, like in any big scheme, we discovered lots of things that could be done better, and they did. But the net result of it is that today, 8 years later, we never talk about toilets because it's just a given, right? Whether you're in a city or whether you're in a rural area, everyone has access to toilets. It's not even a discussion, it's a given. In the same way, the rural electrification scheme to electrify villages, QCI was involved in checking whether they were really electrified. So we went into areas in Assam, north, south, east, west of India to check whether the village was really electrified, whether the line was there, electricity was available, X number of houses had been connected, etc., so that we could actually verify whether it was electrified and the quality of electrification. And it was actually. And there were a few states where they, you know, took the money and they hadn't electrified the village. But now you knew where that was happening, and so you could go and fix that. So our role is not to run the scheme. Our role as Quality Council of India is to help the scheme get better implemented on the ground, so that Srimati Devi gets her electricity and gets everything else. So many of the improvements are due to a policy, many of them are due to execution on the ground, and what we are involved in is trying to measure the quality of execution on the ground so that it can be done better.
You know, one of the things that you talked about, and let me get you, Dr. Singh, to comment on that, is financial inclusion using technology. And this has really been one of the big breakthroughs that we have seen in the past decade or so. In terms of execution, I think the DBT, you know, one could have argued about leakages in the past, but now it's very clear that the benefits are getting to the actual beneficiary. What do you believe, as you assess the implications and the impact of the DBT program, have worked so wonderfully well? And going forward, what do you think more needs to be done?
See, sometimes when we go to the villages, there is a message which clearly comes along that we are getting the money. And initially, you know, when we were trying to evaluate whether all these schemes were being translated on the ground, we always found a few hiccups here or there. For example, I have opened my bank account, but I have not got the card or the password. So when we flagged this to the government, you know, it was hastened. The speed and scale of it improved, and that is where we made a difference. And now what we see is, as Adil very rightly said, the kind of rural infrastructure or the ecosystem in which these people thrive, especially the rural populace, is something which has been built up. He did not talk about the IT infrastructure, for example. IT infrastructure is almost available to everybody. And the young native, digitally native citizens of the country, you know, are using it. And India is a country where the entire banking system is digitally available. So the financial inclusion that you see is because of these ecosystem changes that has been brought in. But let me warn you as well as others. We are not involved in policy making.
Sure.
And we don't take credit of the government schemes which are implemented on ground. What we do is that we do the impact assessment. And as an independent third party, we inform that these are the things which need to be taken care so that these schemes are rolled out in a much more efficient manner.
No, I think both of you have made that amply clear that you're not involved with policy making, you're only involved with measuring the impact of the policies that have been taken forward.
QCI is an autonomous body, so it's partly government, partly not government, and therefore we have tried to get the best of both worlds. So because we are a semi-government body, there is a certain level of trust from the government in us. And because we are a semi-private body, we can move very quickly. So as a result of that, we are able to do these kinds of surveys very fast, as fast as anyone in the private sector, and in fact faster. So this is why we are able to do a lot of this, because we are able to take both the best of government, which allows you to do things at population scale, right? No private sector would want you to do something in 770 districts, go to 100,000 households.
Yeah.
But the government does. But we can do it so fast and for a much lower cost, because we're obviously not for profit, etc., that we often go head to head with private sector survey companies and we win. So I think that's one thing we are very proud of, because one of the things that the government always wants to do, and Honorable PM has stressed, is why can't government entities work at the same efficiency levels and speed as private sector enterprises can? And I think we've been able to find a way to do both.
How have you been able to find a way to marry scale and efficiency and the nimbleness that you talked about? Because that's not typically associated with either government bodies or quasi-government bodies either. And what has changed at QCI? I know today it's a much younger QCI that we see. What's changed, and how have you been able to bring efficiency, scale and nimbleness together?
Well, I'll let SG take the lead on it, because he and I both started in QCI on the same day. I don't know if you know this, but in 2014, both of us started on the same day. So this entire journey, the two of us have done hand in hand, and he has actually executed on this. So the first thing I would say is that we never had a master plan, that this is what we wanted to become. But we always had a plan that, not a plan, but we always had a view that we should act quickly, and any opportunities that come up, we should jump on them and do it better than anyone else can do it. That was always our idea. So when the two of us started in 2014, SG, how many people were we at QCI at that time?
167.
167. And how many are we today?
More than 1,000.
So I have to ask, because it could be changing between yesterday
Changes
and today.
every day.
Right.
And how many young people?
About 790.
790.
Right. So the average age of our group of young people is around 23 or 24. And it's not as though we planned this really well, but we had so many things to do. And we felt that if we wanted to hire people quickly, that we could get young people who are interested in serving the country, but were not willing to make a career of it. You want to make a career, you sit for the UPSC. But lots of people wanted to do something good, get an experience for a year or two, and then go on and get on with their lives. And we felt that there were people like that. And so we started hiring them. And what we found is that, you know, when you have smart young people who are really, really driven to try and make a difference to the country, and that combination has allowed us to act very quickly. So, and I'll tell you why. One, they're pretty smart. Second, they're too young to know what is not possible, right? So you have someone with 20 years experience and you say, I'd like to do this, they'd say, it's not possible, right? You cannot do it, and you'd have 20 arguments as to why it couldn't be done.
Yeah.
But you're a 23-year-old, you have no idea what is possible or not. You just want to please us. So you say, okay, fine, we'll do it. And somehow they find a way to do it. And so the reason that we were able to move quickly is, I think, fundamentally because we have people who don't know what is not possible. So the first survey that we did for Swachh, right? I think we did, I don't know how many households we did, but we did this in 45 days. On average, a World Bank funded agency that does this takes 6 months. And we did it in 45 days, right? Because our young kids didn't know that it was not possible. So they just worked night and day and figured out ways to do it. And I think that culture has stayed with us. And that's why we can move fast, because we have a set of people who are committed and who don't know what's not possible. And so they just, you know, find a way to get it done.
Yeah, we take pride in the fact that we have more or less institutionalized it. And we allow ample amount of freedom to people to experiment. And we have inculcated a character of fearlessness in them. So they are very pretty fearless. They can go anywhere to any ministry, to any secretary, joint secretary, and they can say that, no, this is not right, whatever you're telling me, because they don't fear. They can always fall back on something that they wanted to do all their life. But the
and
most
how many secretaries have called you after a conversation like that?
Quite a few. That is a different battle that we we somehow were the fight
more,
almost every
but
day.
actually more secretaries have called and said, how can I get people like that?
Yes.
That is the more interesting part of it. A few have complained, but actually many more have said, I'd like to get people like that. How come we can't get it, right? And so then we try and help them get some people like that.
But the important thing is that, see, we had in 2014 when we joined, we had the foundation ready. We had our boards who were doing their activity, creating accredited institutions and organizations, and we used them. And on top of it, the most important decision perhaps we took was that we will segregate this entire assessment process. People who go on the ground need to be watched, and we segregated the decision making layer from the layer which goes on the ground, which was not earlier happening. So that perhaps is the most important change that we have brought in the assessment process. Otherwise you would never know whether somebody has taken a feedback,
Right.
whether it is right or not,
Correct.
whether the person has filled it in his hotel room.
Yeah.
But now when we do an assessment, we continuously monitor each and every person who goes on the ground at the back end, and the decision is taken over here, not at the ground. So that is how we have started institutionalizing, and people here keep a continuous watch on everybody who is interacting with the citizens of the country.
Absolutely. So I want to understand from you, Adil, you gave us a sense of some of the schemes that you have looked at. Perhaps the data has also told you what kind of course corrections need to be made. You have been measuring impact. What next now? What is going to be the big focus area for QCI?
So we have, as you mentioned, this is our 25th anniversary, and we're using the 25th anniversary not to look back, but really to look forward. In 25 years, India will be a developed country. We hope, right? That's the goal of all of us, to get us to a developed country. And what is the kind of quality standards that we need, and what kind of quality will people expect? If you looked at Srimati Devi's granddaughter in 2047, what will they expect in terms of quality, and what can we do to make a difference there? So for the 25th anniversary, we've started a whole series of projects to improve the quality of life for the Indian citizen in about 6 different areas.
Okay.
One, in education. So instead of just coming up with standards or measurement, we're actually going to work with a couple of districts to fundamentally improve their pre-K and elementary education
Outcome.
And so can we measure the outcomes, put in a series of interventions, and see what difference it makes? We can do that. So we're doing that. So that'll be 1,000 schools or something like that. So instead of just measuring, we're actually trying to push the ball on education. We're doing the same thing on healthcare. We're trying to do the same thing on labs. We're trying to do the same thing in about 7 other areas where we can improve quality. We're doing this in different aspects of MSMEs. MSMEs have to improve their quality for their goods to be accepted, not just around the world, but in India. The Indian consumer, when faced with a choice of quality and cheap, is typically taking quality. So as we're moving in that direction, how can we help MSMEs improve their quality through something called Z, zero effect, zero defect? So in all of these, we're saying let's take a more active role in the improvement of quality that will affect the lives of people and make their entire life better. Originally, QCI, by the way, was started, this is our 25th year. So when it was first started, the idea was to create a body that would look at our exports so that the quality of Indian goods would be acceptable to the world. But as we have moved over time, I think our view is we should improve the quality of goods for our citizens in addition to exports, right? So now, since the GDP of the country is more focused domestically than exports, we are putting a lot of effort on improving the quality of goods and services for our citizens in addition to the quality of goods and services for exports.
Well, we still have just about 2% of world trade, share of world trade, and that's the big hope that we finally move out of that and see more Indian brands being exported. So it's not just made in India, but it's made in India for the world as well. And we hope that we see more of that on the global scene. Adil Zainulbhai and Mr. Singh, many thanks for joining us here. We wish you the very best of luck with your future efforts and endeavors at Quality Council of India. And we look back at the past, but more importantly at the future with hope and optimism. Thanks very much for your time. That's it then on this special edition as we talk about the journey of the Quality Council of India and more importantly the road ahead for the quality movement of India. From all of us here for now, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.